Chapter 38. The Boatman. The true use for the imaginative faculty of modern times is to give ultimate vivification to facts, to science, and to common lives, endowing them with the glows and glories and final illustriousness which belong to every real thing, and to real things only. Walt Whitman. One foggy dawn, I opened my eyes and saw the night's fog had lowered, and our cliff top was revealed to the starry blue sky. Through the fog that still hung above the water, a mast light on a shrimp boat flickered. By the rhythm and movement, I figured a boom was moving back and forth in front of it with the swells. Down past my untied boots, off over the cliff, across acres of fog with hundreds of rolling waves, beneath the sinuously fingered rising low wisps of fog that thinned as the sun warmed. When my eyes closed, I could see there was life on board. Eggs frying, a grease-stained rubber flip-flop floating in the bilge, rust around the portholes, cool air moving in the cables. White paint so creamy against the low aqua swells you could practically eat it. There were rats under the floorboards, beady eyes in darkness, gnawing on rotting fish parts and bits of rope. When the fog dispersed into blue translucency, we saw a pot-bellied boatman in his long launch flying off the waves to service the wide-boomed shrimp boats rolling a half-mile out. Bill said this guy was the source of our kilo of pot he got when I was in Mexico City, kept in a plastic bag within a paper bag, crumpled by rolling and re-rolling to a texture of tired leather. Over and over, Bill told this story, tripping or very stoned, in great detail. And the story of the magic bag's origin took on a portentousness for me, as if I'd traveled into Bill's head every time I looked at his leatherette paper bag of herbal implements. By Bill's repetition, that sense of portent aggregated up its densities on me, looking out over my feet, over the undulating sea, and up into the white wisps of night clouds. I'd see the sleeping boatman's foot twitch at a fly, laying on a burlap cot behind a burlap door pulled back, in a wall of straight sticks woven together by vines, and fastened here and there with the occasional nail. All shaded by an oval worn palm thatch roof, round in shadow, round in shade, built round with round sticks, stuck in the pepper-colored sand, in the round clearing in the bushes, by the bright, still, round inlet stretching out southeast, to its opening at the luminous breakers at the Aqua Gulf's edge. The brave prow of the boatman's scratched, curvaceous launch dug deep into the hard, clayish sand of the soft, eddying inlet, south of the mangrove swamp, south of the mouth. There was a pile of dried marijuana plants on a cloth in the sun. Bill thought of just stealing some, but he looked at the foot of the sleeper, large, fat-toed, and calloused, not the toes of some panty waist to be messed with. The boatman got up and stumbled out, a long old fish-cleaning knife stuck in his belt in a crudely made sheath. Not so long past drunk, bulbous belly dark brown, crusty and corpulent, with a little graying Hitler mustache amid a 4-day growth. Back from the shrimp boat journeys at dawn, trading cooking oil, tortillas, onions, plum tomatoes, beans, hot sauce, moonshine, beer, cigarettes, marijuana, and pharmaceuticals for shrimp, to be traded likewise back in town for money and future beer and special requests, always taking his capitalist cut at each pass into his fat, calloused fist. Mid-morning, his workday was done. He looked through Bill and said, "La Mota is your friend?" Skeptically, he stripped the silver off the paper from a cigarette pack liner, scraping and peeling with the focus of the devout. He sat cross-legged on the sand, rolling his pot cigar, and began to smoke it, eyes bugged out, 2 blasts of smoke from his nostrils, like a cross-eyed Japanese demon sculpture, hands on his knees to brace for the exhale. It will only be your friend if you smoke it every day, all day. He looked at Bill as if to say, "Are you up to it?" Bill took a kilo and paid him to prove he was up to it, and put the paper bag in his pack and walked off, past the Boatman's tattered red Dina pickup and down his 2-rut road. Early on, Bill developed his theory of the chemistry down in our corpuscles. His philosophy was that you must mix the various exuberants, change them around day to day for them to retain impact. Pot and cigarettes were of course the background radiation, but still they needed counterweights. The balance between soul solvents like mushrooms and coagulants like the beer we hardly used were like positive and negative charges. He felt our rumpled bag held only half an exuberant. It was a solvent to help take it all apart. As a counterbalance, to add a clarity to the daily arsenal, we needed a complementary accelerant, something to put it all back together while always taking it apart. Or was it vice versa? Anyway, these are just words, but his meaning was to simultaneously take it apart and put it together, to keep the hallucinogenic cultural deconstruction a continuous process. We never wondered why we needed all that leverage, pounds and pounds of chemical dynamite, to blow the lock on the doors of perception. The tall grass, the waves, the sea, the volcano, the iron-laden rock were narcotics enough to unscrew the tightest jaw. Coordinating the solvents and the coagulants was about taking control of letting go, a forcing of the chaos, an explosion, hoping the dismembered parts would land in a better place than the modern world meat grinder left them. When we ran out of Bill's dexedrine, we went like bears to Hunter's Donuts, in search of a more powerful accelerant, hitchhiking to the pharmacy in town to find more of Pot's shadow twin. We had to get the pharmacist down off the roof of his house to open the shop for our emergency in the quest of cognizance of good and evil. Bill told the thick-spectacled pharmacist that he was a student having a hard time studying, truer than any of us believed. He sold us enough methadone to make a horse run 1,000 miles and then drop dead from a heart attack. Bill said this made the pot a more complete elucidator, something to fill the necessary flat spots between hallucinogenic journeys. It was added to our larder of very strange stores in the very strange depository of Bill's backpack. It looked like a leftover from Normandy or Monte Cassino. Every time he opened it to get a new transcender, I noticed that backpack's musty military surplus smell. What is that smell? The smell of canvas and wax, but also something more. Maybe gun grease, or the musk of the blood of the long dead. Bill told me the pack had been his dad's in the war, when he and Dick were hunting down the feloniously Teutonic and murderously wrong-headed slave drivers to help them run from the Russians and build our space program and stuff. And I thought, that's the smell.